I can continue. Cut. Hey, no, that did come out right. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Wanjiru Waithaka, a published author based in Kenya. And welcome to the second video in my gratitude series, which is based on that very popular African saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to raise an author. And in this series, I am introducing you to the members of my village, the angels that God has sent me to help me on my writing journey. And I'm hoping that in so doing, you appreciate what it takes to actually create an author. We're back at a Feather Residences on Tigoni Road in somewhere near the Air Center. This is serviced apartments managed by the sister trio of Mwende, Mutheu, and Samantha. So in today's video, I want to talk about two people who are instrumental in getting my first novel published. And this is Duncan Okello and Komchetsi Makoha. Before I go into that, let me just mention that a lot of people, including my own sister Mary G, have told me I'm very, very generous with information. Like, someone will call me out of the blue, half the time someone I don't know, maybe an up-and-coming writer, and then they will ask for help. Maybe they have been hired or they're thinking of getting into the ghostwriting a business, which is one of the things that I do. I ghostwrite books for people in addition to writing my own books. And so what tends to happen is I'll be on the phone for like an hour, sometimes longer. I've also been approached by editors that I've known from the newsroom, people I used to work with at the Nation Media Group who have since left and are also thinking about ghostwriting a book for someone. And because they know I've done a couple of these, so they want to pick my brain, so to speak. And one of the things, as I said, people get surprised that I'm so generous with information. And two people have even said, no, you should not just give this information freely away, you should put it behind a paywall. The reason I do not is because of the two gentlemen I want to talk about today, Duncan Okello and Komchetsi Makoha. Let me start with Duncan because I met him first. I met Duncan when I was working at the Center for Law and Research International, Clarion, and that time he was part of the youth agenda. These were young people that were being mentored by the team of our directors at Clarion. And we became good friends, and even after I left, we continued talking. I think by this time, I had started, writing the novel, and there were a few false starts. I would start a book and then decide it was rubbish and then throw it away and then start another one after a few days. But eventually, I purposed that I am actually going to start a book and I'm going to finish it. Publishing was the farthest thing from my head. I just wanted to finish a novel just to prove to myself that I could do it. But I think along that process, I had been talking about it to, I guess, Duncan, because one day, out of the blue, he asks me, Shiro, that novel you kept talking about writing, did you finish it? I was like, yeah. And he's like, where is it? I told him, it's in my drawer, in my cupboard. I don't need to do anything else with it. He's like, no. Can I read it? I was like, okay, there's no harm. He's a good friend. So I sent it over to his office and he read it. A few days later, he calls me and he tells me, Shiro, I read your book and I loved your book. I was like, wow, okay, this is nice. As I said, I was not writing it so that anybody could read it. I was just writing to make myself happy. A lot of authors do that with their first books. And then he told me, I have a good friend called Komchetsi, and he works for the Standard. But before joining the Standard, he was an editor at East Africa Educational Publishers. So I have sent the manuscript to him. I was horrified. I was like, what do you mean? You didn't even give me a heads up? What if it's rubbish? I mean, what are you doing? He's like, Shiro, just relax. I told you the book is good. But I knew if I tell you, you probably won't believe me because we are friends. So I waited and I waited and I waited. And one day, I get a phone call. My name is Komchetsi Makoha. I'm an editor with the Standard and I'm a good friend of Duncan. I'm holding your manuscript. Can we have a chat about it? I was like, okay, where? And he's like, I want to buy you breakfast at the trattoria. Hey, Now you see. So first, I was so impressed. I have never been to the Trattoria. Of course, I knew where it was. Mamangina Street to this other side, or is it Kaunda Street? One of those. So I was like, just for that alone, I decided, yeah, why not? It means, see, he's paying. So I took myself to Trattoria. It was a Saturday morning, and the breakfast came. So food before business, which I appreciated. The breakfast was delicious, but of course I was really, really, keen to hear, now that, as I said, when I was writing that novel, I had no intention of publishing it. But now that there's a proper professional editor who's read it, now I was invested. I wanted to know what he thought. So I braced myself. And editors are a strange lot. They never ever, you see, like the rest of us humans, we normally start by telling people what is good about something, and then we ease them into the things that we think that, they can change, the things that don't work in the story. Editors do it the other way around. Okay? So he started by telling me, yeah, so I read your story. And then slowly, just in a very conversational-like manner, he started, dissecting it, page by chapter, by title. So some of the things he said was, Shiro, your characters all sound the same. This was my first novel, The Unbroken Spirit, and it's a story which is based on 3 female characters. Okay, Tessa, Regina, and Tony. And he told me, first, your characters all sound the same, so you need to fix that. And then there are some instances where your characters talk too much. Like he gave the example of Philip. This guy has just been in an accident and he's writing he's just talking too much. People are in shock, people are in pain. People who are in accident talk very, very little, so you need to go and fix that. The third criticism that I remember was when he said, you're very good about the dialogue, and you're very good about the conversation, people talking, but your books are two-dimensional, yeah? And then he told me something, at that point I'd never had it, but I instinctively knew it's true. 99% of human communication is actually non-verbal. So when in your book and you're writing, okay, I'll try not to be too technical because many of you watching are not actually writers, but basically we all have 5 senses, which is what? Eyesight, smelling, touch, taste, and of course the talking, okay, and hearing. Those are 5, right? So he told me your characters are two-dimensional. They are talking and they are seeing things, but the others are not explored. So he gave me practical tips of how I can bring that into my writing. And then the last point he said is, you need to because your character, any kind of story is set in context. For instance, if Mercy and Juma are meeting in a restaurant, tell us a little about the restaurant. What is the atmosphere like? Is it cold? Is it rainy? What is the food like? Just paint a picture. So I was like, okay, this is very nice. So we spent like a solid hour, maybe a little bit more as he took me through those. And because I guess I was a new writer, I didn't have the ego. A lot of writers, as you get more advanced, you really get an ego, so you don't want people to criticize your writing. But I was really far from there. I still don't think I'm there anyway. So then he finished by telling me, by the way, Shiro, your story has promise. I think it can be published. So I asked him, why couldn't you lead with that? That's how you should have started this conversation. And he's like, no. I wanted you to pay attention. If I started by telling you your story is good, you'd not have had anything else I said. So I was like, fair point. So we finished, he paid for breakfast, me, I went. I worked on that, the changes he had requested for about 3 months, and then I sent it back to him. Now this is where it gets interesting. I thought he will read it and then tell me, okay, you have done what I wanted, now let's take this to a publisher. He didn't. Again, the strangest thing happened. I got a letter from someone. I think I would call them the publishing manager or the admin, someone. I still have that letter from East Africa Educational Publishers, thanking me for my submission of my manuscript and saying they were going to publish the novel. I almost fell. I was like, how did this happen? So I called Duncan and then I called Comchetsi. They're like, yeah, Comchetsi just, passed along the manuscript. So I'm not going to the details of how it was published. Suffice to say, the novel got published and now you can read it. It's available in all bookshops. But what I want now to point out, because this is not the crux of what I want to pass on, Here is a friend. Admittedly, we are friends. So maybe I had an expectation, yeah, Duncan will read, and that no surprises there. But a friend who takes the time to read your manuscript and then passes on to someone who is in a real position to advise you on how good or bad it is. And then this friend takes the trouble on his own volition. As I said, nobody told me, and they send it to a publisher. And it cuts through all because, publishers receive hundreds, sometimes thousands of manuscripts, But mine went, to the top of the line and it was read and I got feedback and they decided to publish. That was a real gift, And I always tell people, this is the reason why, I'm very free with information. How do you reward people like that? These are people who are busy people. They didn't have to read my manuscript, but they did. They didn't have to help me polish it, but they did. They didn't have to pass it along to a publisher, but they did. They even attended my book launch. How do you reward people like that? Because these are my seniors in terms of publishing and editing and all of that. So the way you pay them back is you pay it forward. So to those people who say, Shiro, you're too generous with the information and maybe you should put things behind a paywall, maybe since I'm a fiction writer, so maybe I'm better at painting a visual. So let me put it this way. I like to think of life as a ladder, And all of us are somewhere on that ladder, So whatever career you're in, there are people above you on that ladder, people who you aspire to be like, and you keep saying, I want to be that person when I grow up. Or, in 10 years, I want to be that person, because that's the person you look up to, And every once in a while, you stumble on people like that who are willing to give you a hand up and pull you up as they're also continuing to climb. But at the same time, there are people below you on that ladder. People who are just maybe starting out, they're still on the first or the second rung, or maybe they're still in that thought process of, do I really think I can do this? And they're looking up to you. Maybe the people above you, it's too high to even think about, but you're somewhere in the middle. So that's when they reach out to me. So when an aspiring writer, someone who is thinking about, has been approached because maybe she writes for a newspaper or a magazine and someone likes her writing, and someone is thinking, Anne, and this is a real person, Anne. So when Anne calls you and says, I've been approached to write a book, but I have no idea how to start. I was hoping you could help me. So Anne is below me on that on that ladder. So even as I'm looking to people like Kwamchetsi and Duncan Okolo to pull me up, I'm also looking at people below me and pulling them up. So as you're being pulled up, you're pulling other people up. I hope you can see where I'm going with this. Because there are two kinds of people in life. The first person is those people who call themselves self-made, and I'm using quotation marks deliberately because I don't think there's any such thing. No one is an island. Even when you don't acknowledge it, there are people who help you to achieve the goals that you set out for yourself. And those kind of people, unfortunately, a lot of the time, they don't want people to reach up to where they are. So again, coming to the analogy of the ladder, when they get up there, they will cut the ladder in the middle of the night so that whoever tries climbing falls off. Or they will burn that ladder so nobody else can reach up to it, or they just kick it off the mountain that we're all trying to climb, so that nyinyi mwende mtafute njia ingine. But I want to be the kind of person, as I said, who is, even as I'm being helped, I'm helping others. Because coming back again to Duncan and Kwapchetsi, how do you reward people like that? You can't give them money, they're doing better than you. In terms of experience, they are better than you. So the only way you can help some, and they would even be, they didn't ask, as I said, Kwamchetsi paid for breakfast, used his time, didn't ask me for a shilling. Duncan has never asked me for a shilling. Or a step further, when the book came out, they are always the first to tell me, Shiro, where can I get your book? The only thing I ask is, please sign a copy for me. And they will pay me real money. They're not asking for real copies. Those are real people who've actually helped you. So this is why I help other people. So when I spend that 1 hour with Anne or whoever else who calls me asking for my help, for me, the way I look at it is, actually those are very productive days for me, because if I can spend that hour with Anne and help her to avoid a costly mistake, or just give her a roadmap and tell her, this is the way I do my things, see what you can pick from my experience and use it, and what you cannot use, just discard it. And then I will go a step further. I have this template that I've developed, okay, of a work plan and also a budget guide. And I share that with them freely, because at the end of the day, okay, saying that I'm going to keep those things to myself, how does it help me? How does it help anybody else? So I hope that helps to explain why I'm so generous with the information. But I want to conclude this video by saying thank you so much to Duncan and Kwamchetsi. A lot of authors struggle. They write, they send manuscripts which never get published. I can only think of it as divine intervention. And just to illustrate, a couple of years after that book came out, there's one guy I met on the street, a very good friend. And when I explained what had happened, he told me, did you bribe East Africa Educational Publishers to publish that book? Because he has sent in excess of 3-4 manuscripts to different publishers, and he's never even received a response. That's when I realized that was God at work. You know, God sends angels on your path. You know that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear? Those were my teachers. And when I was ready, I didn't even know that was the journey I was going to be on, but God knew that. So he first started by planting that seed from that neighbor. Yes, if there's a book inside you, I think you should write it. And then I wrote it and stuck it in a drawer. But it was like, kunafikiria nilikupatia hadithi ndio weka kwa drawer. It needs to be read, it needs to be published. So he sent these 2 gentlemen, and they showed me the way. And I'll be forever grateful to them for that. So I want to conclude by saying a big thank you once again to Mwende and her sisters. She's an integral part of my village. As I said, this is someone I've known since high school. And just, it's the little things, guys. When you call someone and they're able to give you something like this space, you know, just to shoot your videos, and, you know, they don't ask anything of you, that's just a real gift. I've realized through this whole process of reflection and the gratitude series, I have such valuable, true friends, and I thank God for each and every one of them. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would love to hear your comments about the angels in your life who God has sent you to help you along your journey. Share this video so that more people may discover my books. And please subscribe so that you don't miss out on upcoming videos. So I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, remember, whatever you do, whatever life throws at you, you keep on dancing.